I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safer.
Pistols, prayer, and potluck. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hi folks, welcome to another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode number 327. Thank you so much for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week again this week. For those of you who are new, welcome aboard. Hope you enjoy what you hear, and I hope you will come and visit with us again. If you would like to go back and listen to some older episodes, we've got we've got over 6 years of goodies out on the website for you, so check it out. Hope you will come back and visit with us again next week. I am flying solo today. Wanted to discuss an article that I ran across that really surprised me, and give a little shout out to a journalist of all things. So before we do that, I do want to thank the people who make this show possible, the members of the Reformation Gun Club. This week, I want to thank Dan from South Lyon, Michigan, Richard from Wichita, Kansas, William from Bentonville, Arkansas, Jackie from Federal Way, Washington, Paul from McKinney, Texas, Robert from DeKalb, Illinois, Morris from Dallas, Texas, Edwin from Round Lake Beach, Illinois, Stephen B. and Richard from Pagosa Springs, Colorado. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you to all of the members of the Reformation Gun Club. Folks, Armed Lutheran Radio is listener-funded, and that means we don't have any advertising, we don't have any sponsors. This little plug for the men and women who support the show is as much of an ad as you're going to hear today. If you would like to find out more about the benefits of being a member, get access to hundreds of hours of exclusive content and invitations to our monthly online hangouts. The August hangout is going to be aired next week, and we are getting together with members of the Reformation Gun Club on Wednesday this coming week. Ran out of time in August to do it. It's still going to be the August hangout, even though it's going to air in September. We'll do another one in September as well. Try to do one every month. It's a lot of fun. We get together, we talk about what's new, discuss current events, what our latest endeavors are, and just have a good time. It's great to hang out with the membership, and I hope you will consider supporting the show and joining them. Sign up in time for Wednesday's hangout if you are so inclined. We would love to have you join us. To find out more, visit our website, armedlutheran.us/gun club. Check out all of the membership levels and all the benefits and all that good stuff, and come join us for our next hangout. All right. Before we do get to today's content, I said there wouldn't be another ad, but I guess I'll make a little plug here. New book coming in December. If you have not heard, it is available for pre-order now. It is the second edition of my book, Duty to Defend. Been working really hard on the editing, and it is going to be ready in time for holiday gift giving. It'll be available in December on Amazon. I've gone through and worked on the formatting and all the layout, and at this point, and I still have 2 articles that I'm waiting for from pastors, it has double the content of the first book. It actually has twice as many pages, 16 new articles from 12 pastors. 7 of those are new contributors who were not in the first book. I have 3 new chapters myself. I have included a table of contents, which somehow I overlooked in the first edition. I've added an exhaustive index of key terms and people and verses, more definitions for better understanding. It's been edited with an eye towards readability. Sometimes one of the things that I noticed in editing these articles, going through these articles again, was for the layperson, maybe for someone who is not steeped in theology, some of the articles from the first edition can be a little difficult to understand. So I tried to eliminate some of the inside baseball stuff and make it a little more readable for the everyday layman. So I think it's a fantastic book already. I love the new cover design, which is on the website, and it's going to be available in December. It is available now for pre-order at armedlutheran.us/duty, D-U-T-Y. All right. As we all know, journalism is a dying art. It has slowly been dying for decades, but the demise was hastened, I think, by the election of George W. Bush, later by the election of Barack Obama, and of course, the election of Donald Trump. Today, most journalists are little more than propagandists for the Democrat Party and the cultural left, especially at major mainstream publications like USA Today. USA Today got its start before the internet supplanted print media. I guess I don't know exactly when the newspaper first started, but they kind of cut their teeth by dumbing down the news into sort of brightly colored, cartoonish presentations. I always compared it to the comic book page. They, I think, assumed that the decline in media and print media specifically was not because of content or because of available alternative sources. It was because the news, as presented in most newspapers around the country, was just a bunch of sentences in black and white. It's just not exciting, so we need color and easy-to-read charts and graphs. And as best I can tell, and this occurred to me many years ago even, USA Today in print caters largely to the same audience that CNN does. You go to any airport around the country and you'll find CNN on the screens in every waiting area. And it's always been my contention that if you shut down the airline industry, CNN would probably lose about 3/4 of its already meager audience. Well, USA Today's print edition, if they still do it, I don't know because I haven't traveled in a while, but they cater to the same audience. Only later in the journey, they show up, under your door in the mornings at the hotel. And the decline in travel thanks to COVID-19 was, I'm sure, a blow to USA Today as it was probably with CNN. Fewer people traveling means a large percentage of your captive audience is now gone. Now, like every other dying print news outlet, USA Today has a web version. And like every other major news outlet, they are uniformly a tool of the left. So it was with great surprise that I discovered a random act of journalism in a seemingly insignificant gun-related news story this week. This is, and I want to give a huge shout out to the journalist Amanda Perez Pintado, who wrote an article about an event, something that happened outside of a music festival near George Washington. Not George Washington. I just noticed that. That is a really weird combination. The city of George in Washington State. George Washington. Where do you live? I live in George Washington. What? Anyway, concert goers on August 29th said they saw him August 29th. Hang on a minute. Let me pull the article back up. August 29th. This was just okay. So give it to USA Today. To this apparently was. I'm guessing this is an example of sort of like Minority Report stuff where this is like, or Inception, where this happened in the future. It's not even August 29th yet. You're listening to this on August 28th. And this will happen tomorrow, according to USA Today. Tomorrow, concert goers will see this guy do something, and they will call the police. That's obviously a misprint. I will have to go back to other sources to figure out when this actually happened. Let me see. August 21st was when this was first published by USA Today. Jordan Mendoza reporting Friday. So I guess this would be, I'll have to grab the calendar just to figure out when this actually happened. Thank you, USA Today, for freaking hijacking my show because you can't get your dates right. All right, so Miss Pintado, I'm going to have to give you lower marks for this. This would have been the 19th. The 19th of August, 2022. Okay. So now that we've got the dates squared away, good job, editors at USA Today. It wasn't in color, so they didn't see it, I guess. A man carried 2 pistols into a parking lot outside a crowded music festival on August 19th. Concert goers said that they saw him inhale an unknown substance from a balloon and then load the weapons from the trunk of his car. Then they said he asked people what time the concert was ending and where people would exit the venue. Witnesses alerted authorities about the suspicious man around 9 p.m. and he was arrested. What happened, according to another story, was concert security detained him and called police. Police came and arrested him. Police originally said the suspect, Jonathan Moody, age 31, may have had plans to launch a shooting spree during the 3-day electronic dance music event at the Gorge Amphitheater. According to authorities, they don't believe that he had the intent of carrying out a mass shooting. The answer to what his intent may have been is not yet disclosable since the investigation is still underway, said Kyle Foreman, Public Information Officer at Grant County Sheriff's Office. However, we can disclose that after being interviewed by detectives and the warrant services now being completed, detectives do not believe Moody had a mass shooting plan. Moody of Ephrata, Washington, was arraigned on Monday, that would have been the 22nd, on charges of possession of a dangerous weapon and unlawful carrying or handling of a weapon. In Washington, no law directly prohibits openly carrying a firearm, though there are some restrictions. Governor Jay Inslee last year signed a law that prohibits openly carrying guns at the state capitol and at public protests statewide. Quoting authorities, I guess this would be from the Grant County Sheriff's Office, the Gorge Amphitheater does not allow weapons on site, but Moody's possession of weapons was not the lone factor for his arrest, authorities said in a statement. Moody's actions of appearing to inhale an intoxicant, loading weapons in the parking lot, and his questions about where concert goers would be exiting and at what time furthered the suspicions of witnesses and deputies. If you see something, say something. Concert goers did the right thing by reporting suspicious activity, and we appreciate their involvement. This was a statement from the Grant County Sheriff's Office in a Facebook post. Yes, absolutely. Kudos to the Grant County Sheriff's Office for acting on this report. Now, this guy may not have been planning a mass shooting. They now think that he was not, but his behavior is weird. He has guns. He loads them in the parking lot. He then starts asking people when the concert's going to end and where people are going to come out. He may have been planning to target a specific concert goer. We don't know yet. But this is important. We We talked about this a little last week. We got to get our noses out of our smartphones, pay attention to our surroundings. And if you see something that's concerning, don't just go on your way. Don't grab a phone and start recording. Like we said last week, say something, get some help. Then start recording if you want to. It'd be a good witness. But you've got to say something. Now, Mia had mentioned this book, The Gift of Fear by Gavin Becker, in one of her segments recently. I think that was in last week's show, or 2 weeks ago, episode 325, I think. If you have not read this book, you should. Becker discusses cases where people were victims of crime, some of them quite terrible, and how in hindsight, they're able to go back and recognize the clues that could have kept them safe. But more importantly, they recognized that they were aware of those clues all the time. It's not like, oh man, I missed that. How did I miss that? It's they knew it. They knew there was something wrong, and yet they dismissed it because they worried about hurting people's feelings or inconveniencing someone or seeming to be rude, or that old bromide about minding your own business. God gave us a gift of fear, though I don't think Becker attributes it to God's gifts, but that's where it comes from. We all have the ability to sense when something is not right. It may be nothing, but I would seriously rather inconvenience someone. I would rather appear rude. I would rather hurt someone's feelings. If there's someone behaving suspiciously, then be the victim of a crime, be a violent crime particularly, or to have to look back on a mass shooting and think, I could have said something. But there's a difference between the fear that keeps you safe and irrational fear that does not. And here's where the random act of journalism comes in. Going back to the article, the alarm concert goers felt when they spotted the suspicious armed man is all too familiar. Nearly half of Americans reported in 2019 being worried that they or someone in their family will be a victim of a mass shooting. And a third of respondents said that the fear of mass shootings stops them from going to certain public spaces. Now, here is the amazing part of this article. So far, this is, again, quoting from the article, so far, there have been 19 mass killings this year, according to USA Today's database. So props, again, to Ms. Pintado and to USA Today for including that fact. We've talked about this many times, about how the media typically gets its numbers from anti-gun sources who have a vested interest in inflating the numbers horribly. The idea that we have a mass shooting every day in America is just nonsense. It's craziness. USA Today is apparently tracking actual mass killings, which I gotta say is a pleasant surprise. Back to the article. All right, and we have a quote here from Janice Johnson Diaz, Associate Professor of Sociology at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Quote, "This person wasn't de-armed, so it wasn't unreasonable to think of this person as a potential mass shooter." Now, I have no clue what de-armed means. Does she mean unarmed? I guess. She's just trying to sound smart. She is an associate professor, after all, not a full professor. I don't know. Continuing from the professor, quote, "The response makes sense to me in every way. It's just tragic for us that we have not set in place a set of structural things to make people feel safer," end quote. And we're left to wonder what those structural things to make people feel safer that the professor is talking about here are. I would assume that she's talking about gun-free zones, or which this was, or laws banning the carrying of guns altogether, or banning guns outright. I don't know. We're left to assume. But to me, that's not as important as one key word in her quote, the word feel. How often do we drive public policy by our desire to feel something, right? Our feelings. As Gavin Becker's book makes perfectly clear, feeling safe and actually being safe are different things. And if our policies are guided by feelings and not facts, we're probably not safer as a result of those policies. And here's where Miss Pintado really earns her gold star for this article. Most journalists would stop there, or they would quote the professor further, or maybe they would reach out to Shannon Watts for a response. But no. And here's where I take my hat off to her. Back to the article. The fear of mass shootings, however, doesn't always align with the actual threat, research shows. Mass shootings are statistically rare, but factors such as, get this, she's even going to call out the media, factors such as pervasive media coverage give the perception that they're more common than they really are, says Jacqueline Schildkraut, interim executive director of the Regional Gun Violence Research Consortium at the Rockefeller Institute of Government. Quoting Jacqueline Schildkraut, quote, if you look at all of the offenses that are known to law enforcement, homicide in general makes up about 1% of those offenses, and then mass shootings makes up less than 1% of that 1%. We're talking about something that is incredibly rare, but garners a lot of attention, and so that makes it very disproportional in terms of our understanding. End quote. Wow. A mainstream media outlet actually pointing out the facts about mass shootings instead of hype from activists. Color me shocked. I'm sure Ms. Pintado is probably going to be reprimanded for this, maybe fired for her breach of journalistic ethics. You simply don't counter the left's preferred narratives with facts. It's just not done. But then she even points out that the media hype is contributing to this misperception. Now, she doesn't say this herself. She does allude to it, but she's quoting someone who is making this point. The fact that this is actually in the article is blowing my mind. Schildkraut said that the lack of understanding of what a mass shooting is also contributes to the gap between the risk of a mass shooting and the public's perception of the threat. The Gun Violence Archive, for instance, categorizes incidents in which 4 or more people are shot or killed as mass shootings. So that's shot or killed, so it's wounded. But actually, Gun Violence Archive doesn't only count those who are wounded. It counts people who are injured. So if you fall down running away from a mass shooting, you're counted in the numbers at Gun Violence Archive. While the Associated Press, USA Today, Northeastern University database defines mass killings as incidents in which there are 4 or more fatalities. Quoting Schildkraut, Jacqueline Schildkraut again, she says, the way in which mass shootings have been portrayed to our country and the way in which our country subsequently has made sense and responds to these events has led us to be very reactive rather than proactive. We don't spend enough time working to prevent the next one, end quote. Yes, absolutely right. This is absolutely right. We only act when there is a horrible tragedy like Uvalde or Parkland or Las Vegas, and then we only do things based on feelings. Policies driven by fear and feelings don't result, generally, in good policy for the public. Take the response to 9/11, our responses after every mass shooting, like I said, our response to the COVID pandemic. If fear is our motivating factor, our response tends to be more political than practical. If politicians can be perceived to be doing the right thing, to quote a certain senator from Connecticut, then voters are made to feel better. And politicians who push those policies are attempting to capitalize on that fear that they and the media have created in order to gain votes and to demonize their political opponents rather than actually trying to solve a problem. For example, just this week, President Biden said that voters should not reelect any congressman who voted against the Democrats' latest version of an assault weapons ban. Never mind the fact that 3 of his own party members, 3 Democrats, voted against it. Why is that? Well, despite the supposed importance of this legislation and how it's going to actually help solve the problem of mass killings, these Democrats were allowed to vote against it so that it wouldn't anger their voters, so they wouldn't lose their seats in November. See, politics trumps the good of the public every single time. Now, the article does go back to that first professor again, which is fine. Both sides are presented, but I want to dig into this next one because this is important and interesting in its bizarreness. For Johnson Diaz, how the public perceives crime should be, quote, taken really seriously in terms of how we respond to crime, end quote. So how the public perceives crime is what we should take seriously when we respond. So if we are in a panic, if the public is led to believe that there's a mass killing every day, then that's how we should be responding in terms of our policies. That's stupid. If our perceptions are stupid and irrational, then no, we should absolutely not be taking that seriously when we respond to crime. And that's why we have problems. That's why we have crime problems around the country, because we play politics with the issue instead, and we play on people's fears in order to push political agendas rather than actually doing something about crime. Now, this next quote from the professor is the biggest pile of leftist psychobabble. So I'm going to have to try to unpack it for you. But again, props to the journalist, Miss Pintado, for including this nonsense in the article. The sad part, though, is that most of USA Today's readers will probably not recognize how utterly stupid this is. Here we go. Quote, perceptions of fear matter because how we perceive who is a criminal really matters, and that perception is flawed and bigoted and problematic, Johnson Diaz said. How we perceive who's a criminal really matters, and that perception is flawed and bigoted. Leave it to an associate professor of sociology to bring race into a discussion that has nothing to do with race. I can't even figure out where race enters into this story about a guy with a gun outside of a concert. It doesn't. How did our flawed and bigoted perception of criminals affect the outcome of this story? I'm sure you're asking. A guy gets 2 guns out of his car at a concert, loads them, huffs some glue out of a balloon, and then asks people when the show's going to be over and where people will be coming out. Somebody calls the cops and they arrest the guy because racism, I guess. I can't even wrap my head around that. America is obviously a great country because where else can you be hired at a major university and be this stupid? I just don't get it. But it gets better. Listen to this. Quote, this is still the professor. Quote, and it will lead us to the place that happened in Washington, which is where we have failed to understand the actual crime that is occurring and therefore don't have an adequate response to keeping people safe. End quote. Even I can't understand that stupidity. That's one of the dumbest things I've ever read. Our flawed and bigoted perception of who criminals are led to what happened in Washington. It led to us failing to understand the actual crime that was occurring. What crime was occurring that was at what? Huh? It led to us calling the police because a guy had a gun outside of a concert. I don't know if the guy was black or white or what, or green. I don't care. I don't know. I didn't look it up originally. It's not relevant to the story, at least to normal people. Maybe to sociology professors it is, but no. So I went and I looked, and I tried to pull up some articles to see what I could find out about the suspect, and there's no mention of him, his race, just where his age and where he's from. But there's no picture of him. There's no mention in any article that I can find about the suspect's race. So what is this pea-brain professor talking about? What is she going on about? I'm at a loss. Maybe the suspect's white, and the professor is suggesting that our flawed and bigoted idea of who criminals are led to what? I'm still trying to make sense of this. Sorry. Not catching the suspect earlier before he committed a crime? Before he'd done anything suspicious? What? I don't understand that sentence and its context at all. So either there's more context that was not included here, or this lady is just a lunatic. I suspect the latter. So suspicious guy gets arrested before he can hurt anyone, assuming he was planning to hurt someone, which still has not been determined. But he got arrested, and the professor's response is that our flawed and bigoted view of criminals led to what happened, which was him getting arrested. I got nothing. You're going to have to help me out here. Go to the feedback page and let me know what you think this means. So I don't know whether this quote was included as some kind of required virtue signal about race that the media is obsessed about. But I'm going to go with the 8th commandment here. The sheer magnitude of stupidity makes me wonder, because this adds nothing of value to the conversation about guns and mass shootings, I'm going to give Miss Pintado the benefit of the doubt here, the author of this article, putting the best construction on everything, on this quote and its inclusion in the story. It was added to help us underscore the point that the public's fear of mass shootings is irrational. And in the case of the professor, unintelligible as well. So good job, USA Today. Good job by Ms. Pintado for presenting the actual facts, for not quoting activists on either side. She went to a couple of different intellectuals, and one who actually studies violence, the other one who's a sociologist, and got facts from one and racism out of the other one. So props again to USA Today and Ms. Pintado for showing us just how stupid the left can be when it comes to guns. All right, that is all for today. I had planned to go through several stories, but this one caught my eye, and I had to break it down and share it with you. So if you have any thoughts or any comments or any questions about anything I said in this episode, please let me know. Visit the feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback. Leave us a voicemail, a voice message, or an email. I would love to hear from you, or leave a comment on our Facebook group or over at MeWe as well. And just a quick reminder before we go, come join us at the Reformation Gun Club. Come visit with us on Wednesday night for our online hangout. That's going to be Wednesday night at 8:30. The video and audio will be airing on the weekend. So join the Reformation Gun Club, armedlutheran.us/gun club, for as little as $1. I think it breaks down to like $1.26 a month. for the lowest tier annual membership. It's $15.17 a year. Come join us and come hang out on Wednesday and get invites to future hangouts as well. Next week is going to be the audio and the video from the online hangout for our next episode. So until we get together on Wednesday and you see it all on Sunday, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback, or a review on iTunes, and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio, a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.